Hello everyone, welcome back yet again to another video. Today we're going to be looking at the Vader Pros. I will probably have some kind of b-roll, montage, whatever you want to call it at the start of this video. I wanted to talk about a few things because there is a lot to like about these earphones, and on AliExpress and Amazon they're not particularly very expensive despite having the word pro in their name. There's a few things I would like to explore or at least talk about in regards to the earphones outside of just the way they look and they sound. So first off, the tuning of these earphones are known as a Harman curve or Harman-ish curve. The best way of explaining this to you is, for anyone who isn't particularly very like tech savvy or audiophile-ish or whatever, these earphones sound pretty much as natural as it can kind of get. A lot of people don't like Harman curves or Harman-ish curves or whatever, but let's just ignore all of the kind of tech-savvy things, because I feel like if we're going to make a video like this, we can't just be appeasing to people that just think they know what they're talking about with music and sound and curves and all this stuff. What do I think personally you would like about these and what you would dislike about these? Now, coming from a pair of headphones like the Turtle Beach Stealth 700X Gen 3s, yeah, these don't sound so great normally, but then these also don't sound so great normally. Some people prefer to leave their headphones or earphones very stock. They don't tune them, they don't adjust them themselves. There's no problem with that, by the way, but I think nobody has the same opinion and preference on sound and music as everyone else. Everyone hears and perceives things differently, and this is why it's very important to understand that things like Harman curves are a good baseline, but they are never going to help everybody, and it's not going to be ideal for everyone. Now, one thing I will say is the cable on these do feel a little cheap, but they're okay. They're like, as a baseline IEM, they're not terrible cables, they're just decent enough. You could definitely get some better ones. I mean, there is a microphone on this one specifically, which is very nice, so if you plug these into something else or want to talk through this directly, you could, but we're not using these. We're using, of course, my mic here. The three drivers in the earphones would make you think that the moment you put them on it would be astonishing, but I was slightly underwhelmed in the sense that these are very sub-bass heavy, and sub-bass isn't very punchy, it isn't very kicky. I think the best way of describing it is you can feel like the thud of a song, like an underlayer of bass before the real bass, if that makes sense, and you can hear a lot of it. A lot of people go, oh wow, the sub-bass in this song's amazing, because it should be separate from the bass, and it is definitely separated, but there isn't really any actual bass. But there is if you put an equalizer on. So this isn't necessarily the earphone's fault or the driver's fault. They can be tuned to get just the actual kick and punch that you really want out of. I guess for bass heads, these will never probably be right, but they are plenty enough for people that like balance and clarity, because you can push like the V-shaped curve or the staircase curve or the backwards V. I don't know why anybody would do that, but if they like their mids very, very poppy and bright, that is an option. Like I say, this is more about preference than it is anything else, but as a baseline, these are fine. I don't use any earphones or any headphones without an equalizer. So on my phone, for example, I will use Power Amp EQ. On my PC, I use Adobe Access or DTSX to get kind of different sounds or effects, or something that I think makes more sense to me. So when you're going into these earphones, you may be a little underwhelmed at first, but with an equalizer, these can sound, honestly, in a lot of ways, better than most gaming headphones ever will. So for gaming, they're fantastic. And for music, they are definitely up there with some of the best IEMs with an equalizer. I do not have the one that has the toggles or like the switches on the back of the earphones. I wish I did. I don't know how much of a difference it would make. People claim that it definitely helps with actual bass because it removes some of that, the lack thereof, the actual bass itself. The best way of explaining it is vocals are very good, and all of the background instruments you can hear and kind of, you know, get to grips with everything. It's quite a spacious sound considering they're in-ear. I think the best way of describing it was, if I launch Battlefield 2042, I know what you're gonna say. At the minute, we're trying to get the Battlefield 6 rewards, so just bear with me. 2042 with the War Tapes audio preset, with these on, I can hear things that I'm not quite sure I can hear on these. Very immersive, action-packed kind of sound. These sound more realistic and more refined. So footsteps that I can tell where the footsteps are with these. So for example, I can tell if someone's extremely close or really far away running, and I can tell exactly distance-wise where they are. These, on the other hand, I feel like I've got a constant 360 audio, and that's not always perfect, because when I'm trying to hear footsteps that are like all the way over there and not somebody running next to me here, I can't always tell the difference, but with these IEMs I can. So I think there's a lot of trades off and balance between actually having a good pair of headphones and a good pair of IEMs. I would love to try out KZ's or KZ's more flagship models of IEMs, because if they sound this good at this price, I would be curious to see what the higher end earphones sound like in comparison to something that, you know, is like 120, 130 pound here. And to be honest, I don't know whether you guys are aware, but Turtle Beach, pretty much since the Stealth 700X Gen 2s, have genuinely made some incredible headphones that work very well for music, gaming, film watching, whatever the hell you do usually. These have been a balance for everything. And I mean that. I used to own a pair of Sony WXM4s. I used to own a pair of Sennheisers, things like the 300Is, the 400Is. I've obviously owned some Truth Ear IEMs before. So I have good experience. Soundcore Liberty 3 Pros, Soundcore Q45s, Soundcore Q35s, Q30s, Q20s. I've tried so many different pairs of headphones, from the very, very budget end to the very, very high end. I wouldn't really class these as like audiophile brands necessarily or anything like overboard, but I think for the majority of the average audience, these are just perfect products. I absolutely love the KZ Vader Pros. Anything else really? I mean, design is very subjective, but I think the design of these are just so gorgeous, man. They look so good. With that being said, I will see you guys soon, and peace.